for anything. We're ready for anything. Welcome back, everyone, to Black Bull Podcast. Today, we have Dr. Scott with us. Say hello, Dr. Scott.
Hello, everyone.
I don't know why I love telling everyone to say hello. We just like force them to say hello.
Well, okay.
Every time.
Do it.
When they look up and nod, you're kind of like, say hello.
Yeah.
It's an audio podcast.
Yeah. They can't see you. So Dr. Scott is an illustrator, street artist. How would you describe yourself?
I'm mostly just an artist, and I'm shameless, and I put myself out on the street, and we see every week how it goes with everything.
Here's one example of one of the pieces. What's the name of this piece?
That's the Cosmonaut.
The Cosmonaut. And it appears that Dr. Scott is a stipple master.
Stipple sucker.
Stipple sucker. Here's another one of his pieces. Beautiful artwork. Wow, look at that. You do primarily black and white, right?
You know, I have primarily stuck to gray tones, black and white. That has been the thing, especially in the primary drawings.
With an accent of some other color.
Usually when I print them and either put them on the street or when they're sold, there's color accents.
Yeah. What would you say is like the main subject matter? I mean, you have you got some portrait stuff, and then you have some conceptual work. I mean, what do you usually branch your inspiration from?
So I have a lot of meaning in my day life. There's a lot of things going on. And so I have a super luxury of chasing down dreams and nightmares, things that nag me and won't leave me alone. Some of those things that are drawn are things that have been years, if not a decade or two, that just are in my brain that I'm just so happy to get them out.
Wow.
And I've got some rules and stuff. Like I won't draw anything that I can take a picture of. It seems ridiculous. If I can take a picture of it, then I might as well get a camera out and take a picture of it. Right?
That's a great concept.
That is. Oh, that's a great rule. Yeah.
I like that.
So you've got a clear interest in the human body.
Yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely.
And
humans in general.
Humans in general. Okay, that's a great way to put it. I just I noticed it because of the skulls. Obviously, it's a common theme in street art.
It is,
and we've brought up that before. You got RX skulls, you got bare bones, and to be honest, we're often drawn to the skulls ourselves.
Yeah.
When we like looking at stuff. But I've also noticed you drawing like some naked women and other things like that, just other body related stuff. And you're also a doctor.
Yeah.
Is that all tied together for you?
You know, I think it comes down to I have tried to draw other things, and I cannot stick with the concept. I get bored. I abandon it. But I'm curious about humans. I'm curious about us. I'm a humanist. I can follow a drawing through and chase that down. So I'm interested in humans.
It's interesting how people are drawn to subjects like that. And we often talk about, bowls of fruit. Why are people drawn to bowls of fruit? But some people are.
Yeah.
Why do you think the street artists oftentimes are gravitating towards skulls and humans in that way?
So, I mean, just if you think about it for 1 minute, skulls are the most commonly represented image in humanity. I mean, you can look back at 5,000 or 6,000 years, and between some of the animals we lived with and everything in cultures, we look at skulls. We have questions about who we are, where we've come from, where we're going, meaning of all that. But street artists aren't interested in skulls. Humanity is interested in skulls. We all are. And so it's just another representation of what's in our mind, what's in our brains. We're humans just like everybody else.
I love that because RX Skulls specifically was talking about how when he was putting his name out there on Flickr, he said RX. He tried to make his name RX, and people weren't really checking his stuff out. And then when he wrote RX Skulls, everyone checked his stuff out, and he blew up. And that's his name now because of that. He never intended for that to actually be his moniker.
His original RX was already taken. RX is another common one. So I was like, what else do I do? He's yeah. I mean, think about that. I don't think I've ever gone to a city in the world and not seen his stickers everywhere.
Yeah,
very prolific.
I was in New York like 2 weeks ago and came across it twice.
Yeah.
I saw his stickers and I was excited because he was going to be on that next week. I'm like, oh, dude, that's crazy.
And his project's inspiring, right? It's just, it's one of those things I think I could work harder.
Yeah, he does work really hard. Yeah. I was kind of surprised. I didn't realize how much work he puts into what he does before he came on. Mm-hmm. It's really eye-opening.
So you also do large-scale work too?
I do.
So what murals? Yeah.
So I'm a learner drawer. I've been drawing for about 4 years, almost 4 years. And what we learn is you can cheat by drawing large. And then when you reduce it down to life-size scale, it's like details. It's like the hand-eye is 3.5 feet tall in charcoal.
Hold that up.
So you can make details in it that when you shrink it down look like, I mean, these are charcoal strokes.
Right.
So I actually started out drawing charcoals at the 3-foot scale by 2-foot scale, large enough that, you know, going up to 6 feet or 8 feet isn't that big of a deal, but it's much harder for me to draw small. Where some people that they're naturally at that size scale talented and they know how to do things, I'm still coming at it as a beginner. I can work large.
It's less forgiving when you're working small too.
It's less forgiving. You get tight, you get bound up, and it makes it so that typically the details aren't there that when you can draw larger and then reduce down your presentation of it.
Do you usually stick to just drawing, or have you experimented with like printmaking, or do you do painting, like oil painting?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been casting metal and 3-dimensional sculpture for almost my whole life.
Really?
And that's just not part of the Dr. Scott profile. It's not. I don't share any of that. I dabble and I using a lot of other art media, but I've kind of kept what I present and this to kind of these things. But I mean, I've got it's just a whole nother part of life.
It's great to meet the people. It's great to meet both artists who are making a living off their art and artists who have day jobs and do their art to express themselves.
Yeah.
You know, because it's really what art's about. I feel like is expressing yourself. And even Ace Troy just said on Instagram recently, if you can live a life where you can do your art but not make a living off of it, do that. And I thought that was an interesting thing to say. And I don't know if that's how he'll feel in a year from now or not, but it's just really interesting to hear that from some guy who's so talented and seems to be killing it at the moment.
There was a New York Times article, I think it's about 8 weeks ago now, that said, don't underestimate having a job as an artist. You don't have to be employed 40 or 50 hours a week, but it does some things to the artist that frees them up from chasing down avenues of revenue, chasing down ideas of collectors or gallerists, or just the things that are impulsed from the need to make a living. But I mean, it's sort of almost everyone's dream is to be able to make a proper living of their art. And it's pretty rare.
It's very rare.
And I'm super lucky, man. I mean, I just feel super fortunate. I have a engaging, cool day job. I have a staff, and I mean, I do things, it's just great. It's fun. And then I get to chase down some of these other things in my off time. I would love to have a little bit more balance. It's a lot. The week, it's a busy week. So, I mean, I would love to get just a little bit more art time and a little bit less professional time. And that's what I'm working towards.
That's great. And how did you start the Dr. Scott moniker and personality?
It's such a bullshit story.
I love it. Let's hear it.
Well, I wrote it. So I love to travel. And when we travel in Europe, particularly, there's so much public art. And I would just take hundreds of photos. You run through Barcelona, you run through Rome, run through Amsterdam, and I come home with hundreds of bad pictures of street art. And I remember showing staff members and friends, and, some people are interested and most people aren't, but a couple people said, you ought to start a blog of street art. And I'm like, no one reads a blog. And they said, well, no, you can get online and do this. And I thought, that's horrible sounding. And they said, well, you could do a social media account. And I said, I don't do social media. I'm a grown man. And the thing is that they laughed, and a few weeks later they're like, no, check this out. And someone showed me, one of my staff members showed me, they said, just look, just keep an open mind. And they showed me Instagram, and they tapped in whatever that little pound sign, hashtag. Street art. And I could not believe my eyes. Like a million pictures came up, and I was like, holy shit. And I started by just putting on my horrible pictures from the little different travels and things like that. And in that, I got acquainted with the local scene because I was taking pictures of stickers and things here. And the local scene in Portland is as accommodating as one could hope for and guess anywhere, but it's really unique. I mean, the major players are decent, good open human beings, and they're like, "Come on out. We'd love to show you. We'd love to do that." And I was showing them some artwork drawings that I was doing, and they were very encouraging of participating. Krista Dagermouth, Two Front, and then especially Vox Romana. We were met up one night, and he's like, "Show me what you're working on." And I turned around, and he was pasting it up on a wall. And I thought, "Oh boy, looks like there's something in this that's very interesting and compelling for me." And it was.
And when was this?
2015.
Okay, cool. It's been about 3 years.
3 years.
That's wow. That's not very long.
Nope.
I think, RX was telling us too about he was doing it for about 10 years before he really started to make a living off of it. And he encourages people to do it that way too. I mean, you immerse yourself in the culture, see what it's all about, and truly enjoy it.
Yeah.
Don't walk into it thinking, I'm going to make something that sells. And I think that's so huge.
It's really tough for most of us to have patience and to let something grow naturally and organically. But a lot of times when we walk down, we often get the results better than when we feel like we're running down to it. But I mean, who would complain if you turn on the floodgates and you had acclaim and success and sales? And, I couldn't fault anybody for taking as much as they had available to them.
Yeah. Well, it's also, there's a level of respect that some people lose if they try too hard. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
I've seen that happen, and I don't know if I necessarily agreed with those people's opinion. I'm like, hey, the person's trying to make a living.
Yeah.
But they say, they're losing the integrity. Like, that's not what it's all about. I mean, what are your thoughts on that when you see someone that is really trying hard to make a living doing what they love, but too aggressive?
So it's a funny thing, right? It's a group of people who disobey laws in general.
Yeah.
And yet there's so many rules and laws about how it works. And I do find it interesting when a group of people who generally are pretty open-minded, pretty independent, kind of brush aside the things in society they don't feel are right, but yet within their own hierarchy, someone says, they're moving too fast, they're beyond their skill set, or they're chasing the dollar, or they're chasing the fame. And ultimately, I mean, there just doesn't seem to be really a lot of bad ways for me about it. Ultimately, it doesn't seem sustainable if there's not like sort of passion and soul behind it. At least that's my feeling. I couldn't do it. I mean, I just would get bored too quickly, I think.
What do you mean by bad ways? Bad ways about it?
Well, I mean, it's like sex, right? I mean, there's a lot of ways of having sex.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And if someone wants to run on down and be real quick and real flashy and make a bunch of money, that's fine. If they're trying too hard, I really don't care.
Don't a lot of people crash and burn or like get overwhelmed with the pressure if they get too successful too fast? Or
so I think that's possible with all of us. We get burnt out. Our creativity kind of dies out, and I think that's common with artists. But one of the first things I heard in Portland was, let's see if you last a season. And I remember that kind of hit me hard, right? I was so excited. Wow. I loved it. I got up so many posters, and I tried too hard. Oh, God, I was trying so hard. But it wasn't because I was thinking, God, I need to show everybody. I was totally in rapture with of what I was doing. But, that there are a lot of people who do a season. They do one summer in Portland, and then there's not back for a second and third and fourth and things like that.
Do you think they tail off because of the lifestyle, the expense, the mental stress that it takes to put yourself out there that much?
I think one passion drives out another. And people who are passionate, that passion either keeps going or they find something else that fills it in. I mean, I rock climbed like crazy for like 8 or 9 years. And I got a knee injury, and then I dove right into art. And I have to be fair and say, I don't see the future. I mean, what passion's next? But I mean, this one feels so much different. It's something my whole life I've been sort of really close to the desire and wanting the time and the space to do things like that.
I gotta say, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I was just gonna say, you do seem particularly passionate. I don't know if everyone's quite as passionate as you are, But you're right. There's a lot of people that are really passionate, and then they just jump from one thing to another. And I gotta admit, I've had 8 billion projects. I mean, the people who know me know that I've had a lot of projects, too many to count.
And I don't even feel the same way from day to day, let alone year to year. So I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. In your life, on the box of list, if you said, I'm going to put my expression, my art, my feeling of expression out on the street for people to see, it's a pretty fucking cool box to check. Mm-hmm. Maybe not just for the sake of it, but in your lifetime, I mean, it's pretty quick, man. 7 or 8 decades, gone. Man, you should do all the things that your heart's wanting to do.
Yeah, and that's also, it takes guts to do that, I think. I think some people may think it doesn't, but to me, I've never felt comfortable putting my stuff out on the street like that.
Oh my God, it's hard. It's like showing your ass every week. Because no matter what, it's not as good as you think it is. And there's always somebody else. There's always a tremendous amount of, it takes a tremendous amount of like, this is what I can do this week. I know I can do better next week.
Yeah, and there's always
that's good, right?
Yeah,
I think so.
I think it's a good attitude for sure. It's always, if you don't get performance anxiety of some kind and you're an artist, you're a rare breed. Yeah, I think. I've seen so many people get so crushed just by the fact that they're putting themselves out there, and as someone who has put himself out there a lot, sometimes it baffles me because I'll see people who are so much more talented than me and they don't want to put themselves out there. And I'm like, I've done that so many times and I'm terrible. Like, what's there to be afraid of? But it's easy to say that once you've done it a bunch. And like, I still get nervous. I still get uncomfortable, about doing things that even doing things that for people who have seen me do it before, doing it again. You get nervous every time. It's hard to avoid.
It is definitely very common to think, God, they're doing it so much better. Why isn't it easy for them to do, what I'm doing? It's putting it out on the street, playing a gig, producing a book, things like this. But boy, it is tough. It is really hard to know how someone else is feeling.
Totally.
Yeah.
And how they themselves are processing that risk.
And social media is so misleading right now.
Oh my God. It's like, it's a production. It's like one person productions just right after another.
Everyone's acting. You know what I mean? Like, it's a production.
But the crazy thing is, like, and I went into it really kicking and screaming. And then, you could talk to half a dozen people who think I'm totally obsessed with it. I don't feel like I am. But in reality, it is not who we are. We are so much more than the edited version we give other people.
That's it.
And
totally.
The bullshit is that we can start to believe that I'm fucking Dr. Scott or I'm anybody else, but I'm not. I'm Scott, and I have. There's so much more to it, and all of the shit that I don't put online, I have to account to also, right? The bad conversations, the bad advice, the dishonorable and disgusting things. And we don't curate that well on social media. And, it's easy to sort of fill in the gaps and think, boy, this is a really honorable, great person. But in reality, we're just regular people.
That's a good point. I haven't really thought about that because there is a lot of crap out there, and it doesn't really get curated well. No. It almost gets, it kind of turns into a nightmare, or it gets ignored, rather than being almost like you can cultivate negative stuff. You can show why it has a place in the world and why it matters. I mean, I think you probably notice that being a doctor because you notice sick people and you realize the process to healing them and how much that can teach you about yourself and just about the human condition. I feel like I'm speculating a lot.
No. So listen, and you can speculate. Swinging a bat's what we do. The thing is that that we're whole. And I mean, God, I'm not here to solve the world's fucking problems, but I'm a whole person. I'm a real person. And you don't get that on my social media account, right? What's crazy is that people in my real life don't all know about this part of my life. And, maybe the overlap is less than 50 people. And so there's a lot of ways I feel kind of split. I have a professional career where you have to be honorable and just and upright. And, I have a night career that's, a lot more it goes against some of culture's values and ideas about how things are.
Fuck those values. Anyways, so is there anything about like?
Please, let's.
Is there anything about being a doctor that you think has like brought light onto a topic with an art that you try to pursue?
So, okay, so the sort of the candidness is that I'm a professional in my area, and I don't have a lot of questions in that. But how do I observe and interact with the artistic things? I think it really much informs that. So what am I trying to say? Like, I'm a doctor, and I've pursued two different pathways of doctorates with you. How do you take care of people, and how do you conduct scientific research? And I know that informs how I look at things and the questions I have. And I don't think I answered the question.
Yeah, I just wonder like the ties.
The ties.
Yeah.
I almost think they're pretty separate. And as I say that, I think that's probably not accurate. But I think people see the question. But I think I try to keep it separate. Like I don't sort of process much of my art in my day job, and I don't think about my day job a whole lot at night.
Yeah.
But like, it's getting some of these ideas out that sometimes plague me. And just going like, finally, I get it out and I can see it and I can see the size and shape of it and go, that's it, I'm done.
Yeah.
Done for this week.
Real quick, I'm going to erase this. It's not you.
It's him.
It's me.
It's me.
It's not you, it's me, I swear. Okay, cool. We're good.
So then where did you get most of your inspiration? Like what is, like, tell me about this. Like, where does this come from?
I had seen a photograph, probably Lee Jeffries. And when I figure draw one night a week on live models. Oh. And we have all kinds of figures. And there's a homeless man that I looked and I was able to get a picture of, and I just thought there's something in there that I could look at for a very, very long time.
Those eyes, yeah.
The eyes, the translucent skin, senescence, put the work in for 7 or 8 decades, and, was it amount to? Does it mean something? Does it not? I don't know. There's a lot in there that swirls around in my brain.
It seems like you're very aware of death happening to everyone, and you just want to do everything you can to live your life.
Oh, so, I'm convinced we're all going to die.
Of course, yeah.
And the idea would be that, I don't need to bang a pot in the street and say, you're all going to die, so go live your fucking lives. But the idea would be that message isn't always clear, not in all cultures, not in all ideologies. And I think one of the things that really can steal away the power of the moment is by focusing too much in the past or in the future. And if that future is endless with all kinds of possibilities, I worry, man, that it steals the strength of your day today. There's a lot to do. We can get a lot done today. And if I had maybe one message, maybe my own personal message, not my street art message or anything else, it's not. You're given today. Today's your day. Let's get after it.
I like this guy.
Yeah. I think that's the mentality that we try to uphold here, is that you can always, even though, like I said, I think just on the last podcast, you can't rush creativity. Yet at the same time, there's always something you can do. There's always something you can do right now, whether it's, maybe you don't need to work on your art right now. Maybe you just need to work on yourself, or maybe you need to actually do your day job or whatever it is. But there's always something you can do. And if you get bogged down thinking too much about the future or the past, you're not going to get as much done.
And the thing is it just steals maybe the passion and strength of the day. And that seems like the easiest way to sort of be frustrated and to not get anything done. I want to be able to do what I need to do today. There's a lot that can be done. We can do a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you're a doctor, and one thing that we like to
so if everyone wants to drop their shorts.
Okay.
I thought he'd never ask.
Yeah. That's what we've been waiting for. That's why we invited you here. No, but one thing we frequently bring up on here is health habits. Mm-hmm. What do you do? How much attention do you pay to that? Probably a lot. Probably more than most people that come on here. But what do you try to do?
I'm not jacked like Alex. But what I'm saying is, so Yeah, I heard that in a couple of your podcasts, and I'm wondering if you guys it's like on the commercial break. Are we selling like
just Viagra, lots of Viagra,
lots of Viagra,
Yeah.
protein shakes? Are we selling protein powder at the end of this?
I think if you're trying to sell Viagra, you don't want people to be healthy. You want them to be unhealthy so they can't get.
Touche.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No,
Health habits.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, think about, boy, God. I mean, there was a decade where I just thought. Every day I thought about 1 or 2 workouts, and you know, I was trying to strategize and plan and keep notes. And you know, some people have called me obsessive, and you know, I understand. Good habits, good health habits. Man, I mean, good mental hygiene, that's probably at the top of the list, because after that, the physical kind of comes, the sexual comes, the emotional comes.
What do you do for good mental health habits?
Shit. I mean, for me, it starts with some sleep. I think
So important.
it's a myth that you can go on a lack of sleep, and I did that for years in training, and I think it ruined me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that doesn't seem. I did pre-med for a while, but I always thought about the whole like 40-hour shifts or whatever, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense.
Those dudes were on coke,
Of course,
and
yeah, Adderall.
it was this whose balls are bigger in residency, and it's pretty well documented now, and it's really not sustainable. But I'll tell you, it's like a superpower. If you fucking miss a night of sleep and you go, I've been here before, I know how it feels, I know a couple of the little checks to watch myself so I don't make some mistakes, because we've all missed a night of sleep here or there, and it doesn't mean the world's going to end. You can show up and do your work and do your job, but it really stifles creativity. You eat more calories, you make poor choices, your immune system doesn't rebound. It's hard. Mental hygiene, I mean, I think it's sleep. I think it's checking in with yourself and making sure that there's not a big split between who you are and who you say you are. I think there's a big part in like being cool with how you're dealing with the people who are close to you. And if there's a lot of discord, it's being able to tidy that up. There are things with organic and chemical issues in your brain and in your body, and you should chase that down. There's good doctoring happening, but there's a lot of like, get out and take a fucking walk, eat some vegetables, try to get some sleep, and there are things that help ourselves. And maybe it's not the most popular message, but I'll just tell you, you know, I'm just old enough to have seen people who've made cumulatively simple good choices, and it totally pays out in ways that trying to be heroic later with big medications and big lifestyle changes, you know, it's sometimes that slow and steady good choices every day. It really pays out.
The little things, they add up.
They add up, and they're not onerous, right? You're not like, I don't have to climb this mountain every day. No, I need to get up and I need to make some decent food choices. I need to stretch a little bit. I need to be good with my people, and I need to take care of, you know, any inconsistencies and hypocrisies. I think those eat us up.
I agree with everything you're saying. Vegetables, stretching, surprise. Like I had like an incident recently where I've been doing jujitsu, and
You don't say.
I had to do that. I noticed that I wasn't flexible in my hips, and they're like, "Oh yeah, do the butterfly thing." And I was trying to, push the knees down. Like, is that as far down as you can go? I'm like, yeah, that's as far down as I can go. Like, we'll work on that. I just was like half of what I should be doing.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. Yeah.
I've noticed that everything you mentioned for good mental health practices are good physical health practices too. It seems like
I mean, the mind's part of our body.
yeah.
And there's such a strong connection. So, and I think going outdoors. So like in my earliest part of the public art that I was doing, I had a lot of imagery of the Mount Hood and mountains in it. And for me, getting outside was like a medicine that was free. It was like side effect free, and it was a way to clear my mind. And during a really difficult time in my life, I think it saved my life. And then later, after that tough time passed, I think it gave meaning to my life. And so, I think that's the other component. And people get that in various ways. It doesn't have to be in the mountains and the woods. It doesn't have to be at the beach, but it can be wherever you can be.
Yeah.
Getting out.
Yeah. I think a good camping trip every now and then where you're just disconnected from a cell phone and just wandering around, maybe with the aid of some whiskey, that always just helps. I'm serious. I think it helps every now and then.
All I can say is that you start to list a couple of components that can be really beneficial, and it's like, it can do some of that good rebalancing, that mental hygiene.
I agree.
Yeah.
I like everything you're saying. He seems so at Zen.
Oh, don't let me do that. I'm a wreck like everybody else.
He seems so calm. Let's just talk about him like he's not right in front of us. He seems very calm.
That's true. You do have a.
It's the placid face. It's the placid face. My muscles are.
He's such smooth skin.
Right. I use a lot of product.
Yeah, we can't see your expression, so I guess maybe we're.
This is Botox.
For sure, all street artists are surprisingly calm because their face muscles don't move. I said the mask is just for show.
The mask is for show.
Yeah, they don't. Their faces are.
And I almost just brought my RX Skulls bandana in because, that's what we all do. I'm a good man.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
You hang out with RX quite a bit, don't you?
I do. I find him to be a good company.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he tolerates me.
He tolerates.
Absolutely.
Is there are there any influences, like old influences, that you recognize in your artwork?
So, I very much love contemporary art, modern art.
You have that skill.
Well, and obviously I'm not a classical, artist in the sense that I'm producing realistic versions of scenes and ideas that have been well trod over. Artists that mean a lot to me are very expressive artists. And, I don't mean to be trite, but I fucking love Van Gogh. I think Picasso was a machine. I think that as far as process goes, you could almost ignore the end product for the fact that he was always arting. He was always creating. And, I look at great drawers. Jim Dine, God's a master with charcoal. And there are people who take expressions of our natural world with their own filter, and I think it's beautiful. It's great. I love art.
Yeah. Is there anything you like messages that you want to give to young artists or artists that are new in the scene that haven't quite discovered who they are visually?
There are. So when we front end our lives with technical academic training, it's like you're given all of the great tools to be able to create the masterpiece. And I think finding one's voice and finding what they're passionate about is simply just looking and recording how they feel in their art. And they don't have to put an affect on. They don't have to create drama or tension. It's enough to look at something and say, "This is how I see it." But that would be the truest expression of a young artist, is to say, "This is how I see now." Because later, when it's all fucked up and you see it all differently, it's that journey of how things are different, how we see differently. And I see differently today than I saw a year ago. That's for sure. And in that regard, nobody has to be rushed to get their vision. But that's what I would recommend, is take all those tools, as much as you want to learn, and screen printing, woodblock carving, and drawing and painting, and give us how you see the world now. Let's see how you see it.
I could listen to this guy all day.
Dude, this is great advice. No, that's really great advice. I appreciate you coming on and saying all that. It really helps. It's going to help a lot of people, I think.
I agree. And what a lot of people, I think, everyone's always talking about, it's tough to be different. But when you do start doing what you think is the right thing to do, the people will follow. You'll find a lot of people that don't resonate with it, but it's okay because it's not for them. You need to realize that. Yeah.
And the other thing is, man, this is what's cool about art. It did not exist 1 hour ago.
Yeah.
Right.
It didn't exist yesterday. It's like music, man. It's like you didn't just pull up a catalog and just say, "That's mine." You made it. And that's pretty cool. I mean, it may be one of the defining definitions of Homo sapien. We create things that didn't exist beforehand. And some of the other animals, many of the other animals, don't do that. They use the world, they experience the world, but they're not creating something new from scratch. And we get that chance. We get that chance every day.
Yeah, and it's a choice that you make. You don't have to do it, but when you do choose to do it, you're birthing something into this plane, and it's kind of an incredible thing. And they were pretty much.
And it's enough.
What do you mean?
You don't have to do more. You don't have to solve the world's fucking problems. You don't have to find a voice. You just have to create.
Yeah, I think it can be a lot more powerful than people realize before they do it. Because creating something can inspire people to change the world, and it can inspire them to do other great things, and it does. It constantly does. Think of how many people are artists because they saw someone else's art. Probably everybody that's an artist.
Well, also just the act of doing art. I mean, we look at Christian Gabriel, the one who he basically cured his PTSD by just doing art. I mean, just the simple act of doing it is such a mental exercise that can help a lot of people too.
Yeah.
You don't have to make the strongest message. I'm not saying he does. He does make really strong messages with his artwork. But, but you can be someone who paints that bowl of fruit, and that could be your therapy for the day.
I try to do a drawing a week, and when I don't get it, I languish a bit. And it seems like obviously it's a fucking first world problem, but the point is that it's part of my mental hygiene. It's part of my routine. It's part of something that makes me think, all right, I've done something this week that I'm this is what I wanted to do. This is what I'm about.
Yeah, and that's another good point about not making it all about money. Because sometimes you got to make art for art's sake. And I always forget this, and I always say it on the podcast and then don't do it. But like drawing, I'm not really an illustrator or visual artist that much, but when I do draw for my own sake, it does make me feel a lot better, like mentally, like just drawing whatever is just in my head and getting it out. It's such a release. It's so relieving.
Everybody's a drawer. We don't give it enough credit. The fact that you're a drawer, man. You're drawing exactly what you're doing right now, and it is good. But the idea is we get caught up in how it's supposed to look. We get caught up in results. Yeah. And regarding the money, man, I have never known anybody who's an expert at something who doesn't end up getting remunerated and treated well for it. I mean, you can get fucked, but it's not that common. It's more common that goods shine through.
Yeah,
I like it. Anything else you want to bring up?
No. I think you did it all, man. Is there anything, any events you got coming up?
Super stoked. Selling art through HG Contemporary in New York. Got hooked up by Layer Cake, Sean Sullivan. Show right now, Concrete Arcade in Portland. And lots of super great people making opportunities happen outside to paint and to be able to have that expression be a little bit bigger and slower than our normal fast and speedy stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on. You definitely have to come back sometime.
Oh, actually, I have another question real quick. How did you come up with the 0 for your Instagram name?
Oh, God, it's such bullshit. Yes. I had to eliminate letters. I was using too much of all my real name.
Oh, okay.
And so then I went to shorten it down to Dr. Scott, and it didn't exist. Dr. Scott was already taken.
Yeah.
And I sat there, and I'm like, how do I work around this?
Yeah.
And anyway, so I ended up crossing out the last part in a 0. It's just so serendipitous. I should have I think now I have 1,000 different names that would be cooler than DRSC 0. I just think about that. But that's where it is.
Too late.
I like it. I like saying Dr. Sco, even though that's not your name.
there are people who still call me that.
Really?
It's all good. It's all good.
That's great.
Cool.
But yeah, so it's DRSC 0.
Dr. Scott. Dr. Scott's is my name. And
do you have a site, website, anything?
It's on Instagram, and I'm sure there's gonna be an art site at some point.
Cool.
Yeah, it'll happen probably.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we'll make sure to stay updated with you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Definitely love to have you back.
And thank you to all our listeners. And even though we forgot to pull out Cascade Street Distillery.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I forgot they're back. Okay, sorry. All right, Cascade Street Distillery, thanks for sponsoring us, even though we forgot to bring it out.
We're gonna have some right now.
Right now, yes.
Yeah.
After the podcast.
Yeah,
it'd be a good time.
That's actually a good idea.
Yeah, cool. All right.
Bye, world.
Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.
Peace.